All right, everybody, welcome back to Fandom from Afar. They said it couldn't be done, but I found a Texas Rangers fan in Jacksonville, Florida, and he also happens to be one of my favorite people to talk sports with. So welcome, Brad.
Thank you. Fan of the World Series champion, Texas Rangers.
How nice is that to say?
Oh, really nice. Yes.
First one in franchise history.
Yes.
Now you're leaving 5 clubs behind, Rockies being one of them, that have never won a championship.
Yes. Now, how close have the Rockies come?
We made it to the World Series and then got swept by the Red Sox.
Okay.
But I'm convinced that we would have won that year if not for timing, because we swept our way to the World Series,
Right.
and then had to wait like 10 days for the Red Sox to finish up their series. And then by that time, all of our timing and momentum was gone. So
Yeah.
that's what I tell myself, that we would have won.
Yeah. I think baseball, there's something to do with rhythm. And I think a lot of people talked about the playoffs. Wildcard teams did a lot better.
Yeah.
And the higher seed divisions, or the division winners, the higher seeds struggled. And it could be the time they got to sit around.
And it's crazy because didn't Arizona only win, like they were barely above 500, right?
Yeah.
And they made it.
They made it. They clinched the playoffs like game 162 of 163.
Oh, wow.
And then, the Rangers and the Astros both clinched the game before that. And then the Astros ended up winning the division. And then the Rangers went in as a wild card, but they had the same record.
It's so fun because I think I saw a stat like all top 5 teams that all had the best records were out pretty quickly. So it's kind of fun that you just never know what's going to happen.
Well, I think a lot of people talked about the playoff format being a problem, but I think the opposite's true. I think baseball took a gamble that said there's more teams that are capable of winning the World Series out there. And I think if anything, like this playoffs showed that that's the case.
Oh, yeah. I love it. And so let's kind of stick with the championship. Like normally I like to start with people's origin story, but let's stick with the this happy ending here. So
yeah.
Tell me about the team, maybe some of your favorite players and how you're feeling during the regular season, and then we'll kind of get into the playoff run.
Sure. So coming into the season, I didn't have the highest of expectations. 2 years ago, we lost over 100 games, and it was almost like a chore being a fan. Especially being in Jacksonville, being on the East Coast when you're following a team that's 3 hours behind playing in the West Division. It's like, I'm going to wake up and I know what's going to happen and I know what I'm going to see when I open up ESPN, but still going to look.
It's like, which reliever blew it this time?
And I open it up and like, oh, there it is. So we didn't have high expectations. In fact, I had a joke with people I talked baseball with. And so we won the first series. We won the second series we played. And so I just constantly kept referring to him as the first place Texas Rangers. Because I was like, I don't know how long this is going to last. So we're just going to keep riding this vibe. And next thing you know, we're into the All-Star break, like first place Texas Rangers. Going into this season, we made a few huge signings in the winter. We brought in Eovaldi from Washington. We brought in DeGrom from the Mets. And then we brought in Seager and Simeon. And
yeah, judging from the playoff run, those are some pretty big additions.
Yeah. And, DeGrom started off hot. We won all 7 of his starts. And then he went out, had to get Tommy John. But Eovaldi was pitching at like a Cy Young level to start the year. And then he got hurt. And then going into the All-Star break, credit to the Rangers, like staff, Chris Young recognizing like there's an opportunity here. And so he went out and we got Scherzer and then we got Montgomery. And I think that's really bolstered. And that's what established us. Like if we can get into the playoffs, if we can make a run, we're a dangerous team.
Yeah. Starting pitching wise, that's pretty legit staff right there.
Yeah. So, we made those additions and we came out of the All-Star break on fire. I think at one point we won like 9 of 12, won 5-6 series in a row, and then all of a sudden, like, could not win a game. And to the point where, like, from game one up until, like, we're 3/4 of the way through, like, we had a pretty sizable lead in the West and then lost it. And then Houston was in first. And so now I'm kind of like starting to panic because now it got to the point where it was like, I know the playoffs. Like, we should be in the playoffs. Like, let's take care of the West, not worry about, like, being a wild card. And now all of a sudden, I think at the beginning of August, like, we're not even in the playoff picture.
Oh, they were collapsing pretty quick.
Yeah. And then kind of refound some momentum and started winning series again and got back to where they swept the Mariners. So the wild card became a 4-team race. So it was the Mariners, the Astros, the Jays, and us, the Rangers, kind of vying for like 3 spots. One was going to win the West, and the other 2 wild cards were going to go, and then somebody was going to get left out. And so we swept the Mariners and then got a 1-game lead on the West, and just kind of like replaying all these events in my head. We swept the Mariners, and then the Astros get the Diamondbacks the next series, and then I can't remember who we played, but it was kind of like we had the Mariners, and then we had, I think, the Angels, and then the Mariners again to close out. So we swept the Mariners, kind of took control of like our playoff destiny, and then we ended up clinching the first game, like we played against the Mariners.
So it went right down to the end. Like, it's not like you got to sit there and be like, oh man, here come the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're for sure in. Like, this is going to be
great. It was
great.
kind of, we sweat it out all the way until I think game 160.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then we were able to clinch. I think we and the Astros clinched the playoffs the same day. And there was a little bit of drama because there was an Astros beat writer who made a point of saying how the Rangers kind of had this mentality of not having been there before and thought they celebrated too much upon getting a playoff berth. And that was the reason why the Astros ended up winning the division. And it's funny because there's a video clip and it's in the Astros clubhouse after they win the division. And the quote is, "People always wondered what would happen if the Astros didn't win the West, but I guess we'll never know." And they go crazy and start celebrating.
Oh my goodness.
And then Corey Seager got to pay it off when we had our World Series parade. He's like, "I guess people will never know what happened if the Rangers didn't win the World Series."
I love it. It kind of makes it even sweeter. Like, just that little dig coming from Houston, who's just happens to be a bunch of cheaters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how they established themselves. And then, I mean, they've been able to sustain that success by, I guess, legitimate means, allegedly. But it was sweet to kind of beat them because there is this mentality of Astro fans. Like, I don't know if it's with all teams, but like you get teams that just have this run of success, and all of a sudden it's kind of like Houston Astro fans, like, we invented baseball, like we perfected it. Like, I think you see it with Georgia football fans now. It's kind of like we are the pinnacle of football, and it's like, I mean, you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Please enjoy that while it lasts, but there's going to come a time where
that's how Patriot fans were for so long too.
Oh, yeah.
And like now they wish they could get a first down.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now, did the team have kind of like a personality? Like, how would you describe the team in general? Like, it almost sounds like they took on the underdog role and kind of thrived off of that.
Yeah, I think there definitely was a chip on their shoulder mentality. And I think they were a lot better than what people gave them credit for because, you know, when I talked about us having that slump, like, we were down for a good chunk of that, like our starting third baseman, who was a rookie, Josh Young. Seager was out for a couple weeks and not completely right when he came back. Like, Evaldi was on the shelf. So a lot of key players were out during that slump. And as we were coming out of the slump, they were coming back into the lineup, but just kind of still shaking off the rust. So going into the playoffs, I think I had this mentality of just a little bit of like quiet confidence of, I definitely was not expecting the level of success we had, but like I could see us beating the Rays. Like I could see us making some noise in the division series. And then it's like, if you make the ALCS, like, let's see what happens.
Especially with that pitching.
Yeah. So I think they knew it. And I don't think a lot of the baseball world knew it. So I think there definitely was kind of a chip on their shoulder mentality. And I think what people don't realize is like, we had good pitching. And I think if you take lineups and you go, these are our guys 1 through 9 that are hitting. Like I think Texas probably had the best 1 through 9 lineup. They probably didn't have the best first inning battering, like 1 through 3. But if you take 1 through 9, like there are no easy outs.
And that makes a huge difference. Like that's going to wear out the other pitching staff. It turns the lineup over. Like it's a big deal to have that depth.
Yeah, and I think Texas was more built to be a playoff team than like a regular season juggernaut. Like you look at the Orioles and they have really good pitching and like so hitting, but like when they get on base, they like to run and create havoc, kind of similar to what Arizona does. And like that's good for the regular season. Like you can beat up on some 4-5 pitchers, like when you get right matchups.
Yeah. And
you can get a lot of wins. But like when it comes to the playoffs, like in a 5-game series, you're facing 1 and 2 twice, like your ace and your second pitcher, like your second best pitcher twice.
It's a whole different game.
Yeah. And so I think Texas, with the offense they had a really good number 1 guy in Evaldi. They had a really good number 2 guy in Montgomery. Like they were just kind of built for the playoffs.
Which is the way you would want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Win 85 games every year and then start dominating the playoffs. I would take that.
Yeah.
You guys pulled off one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And correct me if I'm wrong, I might have misread this somewhere, but you won every single road game in the playoffs.
Yes.
How does that happen?
I think it's a credit to the offense. And I think almost it, because, when you're the road team, you hit first in the inning. And so I think they just had an ability to just, in the first couple innings, get some hits, get some runs, and that just kind of like tightens everything up for the home team.
Kind of playing from ahead the whole time.
Yeah, so you kind of like put that pressure on. Like Game 7 against the Ash, was it Game 7 or Game 6? Like we knocked it, like their starter got 2 outs.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and then we were able to get him out. And like when you're able to do that, like you're creating havoc. And
when you're playing ahead like that, you're so much more confident at the plate, like because the pressure's not on. Like you're just swinging.
Yeah, like same thing. Game 4, the Diamond and the World Series. Like I know I'm jumping around different series and stuff. The Diamondbacks were using a bullpen game, and we were able to jump up. And by the 3rd inning, we had 10 runs. And so we're throwing a stopgap guy, and he's able to now get us 5 innings because we have a giant lead.
I think a lot of people say momentum doesn't exist, but I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Is it makes such a huge difference just in your mentality and how you're playing every part of the game that I'm ahead 5-0.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I dive for this ball and don't make it. I caught it because I was that much more confident than I was going to do it.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think that's great. Yeah. But every road game, what was it, 10-0?
I think it was 11-0.
11-0?
Yeah.
That's just that'll never be matched. That's impossible.
I know. It was, I mean, with the Astros series, when we lost Game 5 and Altuve hit that home run, like I thought we were done.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was it. And then, we win Game 6 and it's kind of like, well, anything can happen Game 7. And then Game 7, we jumped out early and it was just kind of like, all right, let's just ride this wave.
Yeah.
But, I think just being able to hit first with the explosive lineup we had, I think really helped because, you had Seager doing what he does, and then you had Adolis Garcia just playing out of his mind. And so that's just a recipe of just like, you put up a couple crooked numbers in the first 2 innings, and now the other team
kind of snowballs from there.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite, like, do any specific at bats or a pitcher getting out of a jam that like just came in huge moments? Like, are there specific moments that you'll think about for this playoff run?
Yeah. So, I think Evaldi's first game against the Astros, I think it was game 1. And I think it's like the 4th inning, and he gets, Texas is clinging to like a 2-run lead, and he gets in a bases loaded, no outs jam. And I'm expecting, like, all right, like, let's just play matchups the next 3 batters and let's get out of this and then go from there. And Bochy leaves Evaldi in, and 2 strikeouts and a ground ball later, like, Houston scores no runs.
Wow.
And just the pitch sequence, especially to Altuve to get the second strikeout, was just amazing. How he kind of set him up. He goes fastball in, fastball out, and then throws a splitter that starts with the same exact trajectory in the spot as like the fastball out, and then just tumbles and drops. And Altuve didn't have a chance.
That stuff's so fun.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's so fun to watch playoff baseball, because of the 2 pitches setting up the next pitch. Like, it's such strategy game.
Yeah. So like that's definitely one. I think Corey Seager's home run to tie it up in the 9th in game 1 against the Diamondbacks, like, just first pitch, just abs. When Corey Seager, it's crazy because you see people hit home runs and like they just barely clear the fence. Like there's an outfielder trying to jump and catch the ball, and it's just like when Corey Seager connects with one, like nobody in the outfield is moving.
Yeah, they just put their head down and be like, "Well,
there is no doubt." And so just the moment of that, because it just went from like, all right, we're in a hole, like we just lost home field advantage. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're still alive. And then Garcia up in the 11th hits a walk-off. And it almost kind of like, like that walk-off home run, like I think kind of like excised some like demons.
Yeah.
Because Garcia sets a record on that home run. And that was the most RBIs in a playoff run. And the previously record holder was David Freese for the Cardinals.
Oh, yeah.
And I have some very painful memories. The last time the Rangers were in the World Series, game 6, we have the Cardinals down to their last strike. Freese hits a triple, ties it up in the 9th. We get 2 runs off a Josh Hamilton home run. And then we get the Cardinals down to the last strike again. And just some zany things happen. They get 2 more runs, and then Freese walks it off in the 11th. And then we lose game 7.
I haven't heard David Freese's name in forever. That's right.
Yeah.
It's like all flooding back to me now.
Yeah, so they're like, for a while, like I would just cringe at the phrase like down to the last strike. Like I hated that.
Yeah,
phrase.
that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and it was funny because like it was almost like when Garcia hits that home run to walk it off, and you're like, okay, he has the record. It's like that feeling of just kind of like waiting for the shoe to drop. Like it's like things are going good, but
yeah,
just kind of like started lifting up a little bit. Like when Altuve hit that home run in game 5 to take a 3-2 lead, and now Texas has to win 2 in Houston to advance, my gut feeling was like, there it is. Like that's our, this year's version of David Freese. Like,
yeah,
like this is happening. And then we go game 1 and it looks like we're in trouble. And then Seager hits a home run, and then Garcia hits the home run and kind of takes the record. And it's kind of like, maybe the shoe's not going to drop.
Is that the first time you started to allow yourself to think about like, oh, this might actually happen?
Yeah. It was just kind of like starting to breathe. And then it was like, we lose game 2 pretty convincingly. I was like, how dare you have those thoughts?
I jinxed them.
Yeah. How dare you think like that?
But it happened.
Yeah.
It did it.
Yeah. And it was fun because, I'm an East Coast guy following a West Coast team. So my main way of following the Rangers is like on my phone, like ESPN Gamecast, MLB Gamecast, there's very different ways. I'm not saying I'm superstitious. I'm just saying there's certain random things that if I do or don't do will have an impact on the game. So,
well, I definitely need to hear about what you do.
Yeah. So depending on how things are going, I might follow it on ESPN or I might follow it on MLB or, if there is a game going on and you Google Texas Rangers baseball, like it will kind of have like what's happening on the game right now. And then kind of like a Twitter feed you can slide through that gives you live updates on what's going on. So depending on how the game's going, every now and then I'll try to watch. But during this postseason run, like, for the Rays series and the Orioles series, I just followed exclusively on my phone because they're either playing at a time where like I just wasn't available to get to a TV or like they were playing on TBS, which I didn't have. And so that went really well. And then we get to the ALCS and that's like, all right, we're starting to get like on Fox, like this is the big time. And so like we win the first two and I just kind of like followed it and I was like, let me watch, like things are going good. And then like we lose the next three. I was like, okay, I can't watch.
Oh my goodness.
And so I go back to following the game on my phone. We win the next two. And I was like, okay. And then we win game one of the World Series. I followed that on my phone. I was like, all right, this is the World Series. Like I have to watch. And then we lose game two. And I was like, no, I don't.
Oh my goodness.
I have to do my part.
So you can't let the boys down.
Yeah, I know. Here I am, sacrificing. And so, I start pretty much exclusively like following the games on my phone. And like, this is kind of where it gets crazy. So it's game 5 and their pitcher Gallon is just throwing a gem. And so I'm following the game on my phone and it's like Evaldi's matching him, but he's like grinding. Like they're getting a base runner in scoring position like every inning. You just keep waiting for them to like break through. And it's like, all right, like this is going to have to come back to Texas. But like Evaldi keeps getting out of it. And then in the 5th inning, we get through our bottom of the lineup, but some of the bottom of the lineup guys just kind of like seem like, again, I'm following on my phone, so I didn't see it, but just like we had 2 flyouts to the fence and like my brother and my dad are watching the game and I like texted them like, do those seem like good swings? And they're like, yeah, they made good contact. It just didn't get out. And I was like, okay. And then Evaldi comes out and he's been letting a base runner get on running like in scoring position and just gets a quick 1, 2, 3. And I was like, you know what? I need to watch.
Yes.
And so I turn on the TV and that's when we get our first run. Like get a seeing eye single, kind of beats a shift, and then a double, and then a single. And then we load the bases up, and we don't do anything. And I was like, okay, we got one. Like, let's see what we can do. But now I'm just like watching. And then we get out of the bottom of the 7th. We go to the top of the 8th. We load the bases again and get nothing. And so now like I'm like, I just jinxed this. Like I'm watching, and like we didn't get any insurance, and like we're going to lose in the stupid 9th and we're going to give them all the momentum going in. I was like, but I'm already in, like I'm committed. So I'm going to watch. And then the 9th we get 2 across in the air and then Simeon hits a home run. And I was like, this is going to happen. And I'm watching. Live.
Yes.
And so we go to the bottom of the 9th and it, I talked about like how I cringed at the sound of like down to the last strike, and we get to the point and I was like, say they're down to the last strike, say it. And he said it and I was like, let's get it. And then took 2 pitches to get him out. But
you got that last strike.
Yeah. And then it was just kind of like, it was definitely so I'm a Gator fan. And so I've experienced like championships before, but like, this was different in a way that's kind of like hard to describe. It's like when you're with a team and like you're grinding with them through a lot more bad than like you've had good. Because, ever since I was following the Rangers, like we had like mid to late 90s where we would win the division and then go get beat by the Yankees.
Yeah.
And then, 2009, 2012, we made the playoffs pretty much those years and had 2 World Series appearances, but couldn't get it done. And then not much else after that. And so like when you're grinding with a team and like they finally break through and they do it, it's just kind of like
it means that much more.
Yeah. And like you just kind of get struck by this like this awe, like this reverent silence, and you're soaking it in. And if, I'm not one to be kind of like the gatekeeper of like what a true fan is. And it's, if you were hitched to Tom Brady and you saw all those championships and now you want to hitch up to Patrick Mahomes, like be my guest. I'm not going to stop you. But like when you hitch up to a team and you go through all that bad and you finally break through, like there's nothing you can do to like match that feeling. Like I can't imagine like what Cubs fan was doing in 15. Like,
oh yeah.
Like when they broke through. And like I remember like seeing some of the reactions and like those fans like faces, and it's just like you can't do that being a bandwagon. Like you can't expect, like you got to go through a lot of bad to get to that moment. And so,
I totally agree. Like it's a whole nother level to feel, like you said, the pain and the misery of having a bad team for so long. And it just makes the championship so much sweeter.
Yeah.
Like I was a couple months ahead of you with the Nuggets, same thing. And yes, you guys can stop holding your breath. I did bring up the Nuggets in a Texas Rangers podcast. I love that though. Just the way you described it's perfect. Just that, what'd you say, breathlessness?
Yeah.
Like just soaking it all in.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same thing I experienced when the Nuggets got the rings and raised the banner.
Yeah.
Like you get to experience all again, just seeing those guys who have worked their whole lives to be at that moment.
Right. And I think that's something too, where it might be unique to baseball. Like I think you can have it like in football and basketball. Like one of the great things about baseball is like you can't get a lead and then like start running out the clock or, play prevent deep. Like you can't, elongate your possessions. Like when you play baseball, like you got to throw the ball over the plate.
You got to play.
Yeah. You got to give him a chance to hit, and then you got to make your plays. And so I think that's kind of like you're always holding your breath until like that final out is called.
Well, and I think I have to take back an earlier statement when I said the Rangers winning all 11 road games was the most incredible achievement. I think you having the self-control to follow the games of the World Series of your favorite team on your phone might be even more incredible. I could never do that.
Yeah. I mean,
but you did what needed to be done.
Sometimes you don't do what's easy. You do what you got to do. You got to do what needs to be done.
It's just so perfect because baseball players are just the most superstitious people ever. So of course their fans are too. But especially following along on your phone like that, sometimes there's like 30 seconds or a minute before the pitch updates and you're just wondering what's happening because you're just like, oh my goodness, something big's happening here.
Yeah, that's the annoying thing because like you can kind of get keyed in because I've done this enough where you're watching and I'm literally like, people are going to probably think I'm an idiot. Like I'm just staring at this screen and then you just see like little numbers tick. So you see like the pitcher, like he went from 50 to 51. So you're like, all right, like he threw a pitch. And if it's like a strike or a ball, like something that doesn't get hit, like it usually just pretty quick updates. And then like there's times where you're like, it goes from 50 to 51 and then you're just waiting. And then like maybe you refresh your screen, like what just happened? And you're just,
someone's running around doing something.
And then a lot of times like before like the game cast like updates with what happened. Like if it's something where like somebody scores, like next thing you know the score changes, you're just like, oh my God, something just happened. What happened?
I love that because I can see you doing that. But that is dedication and I love it so much. Well, let's talk about how you got there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, was it young Brad, teenage Brad? Like when did you start following the Rangers and kind of tell me the journey to that breathlessness?
Yeah. So as far as I can remember, I have been a Rangers fan. So I kind of deviated off the family fandom. My dad and my brother are Cardinals fans.
Oh.
And that stems back to when my dad was young. One of the few radio stations you could get was KMOX out of St. Louis. And so he'd listen to Jack Buck call Cardinals games. So that's how he kind of became a Cardinals fan. Because at night you could get, the broadcast and listen to the games. And that just kind of got passed down. And so that kind of also was another bitter pill to swallow in 2011 with the heartbreak of losing game 6 and then losing game 7 like that.
Family had bragging rights over
yes. But my favorite baseball player to this day is Nolan Ryan.
Nice.
And I don't know how it started. I think we have some speculation that way back when he had this commercial, I think it was like for Aleve or Tylenol, and like the jingle was like off the rawhide, but it was like Nolan, 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 keep that fastball throw in, Nolan Ryan. And I think just maybe like 3-year-old me, 4-year-old me attached to that.
You're just like, yeah, that's the best thing ever.
Ryan. I love it. And then, fast forward a couple years, like it's just like Nolan Ryan. That's my guy. That's who I cheer for. And I remember, one of the TV stations you could get back in the day was like WGN, and they would mainly play Cub games, but every now and then they would play White Sox games too. And like I was actually watching live like the infamous game where Nolan Ryan hits Robin Ventura.
Oh yeah.
And then Robin Ventura charges the mound. And like I just remember like I'm sitting here and I'm just like, what is happening?
And Nolan was not worried.
Awesome. Yeah. He puts Ventura in the headlock and just kind of starts wailing. And so, he retired, and it was just like, just kind of stick with him. And it kind of helped that like they were a better baseball team in the mid to late 90s. But they could never get past the Yankees juggernaut.
Yeah, it's just bad timing, because you guys did have some good teams back then.
Yeah.
Like Pudge Rodriguez and Juan Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the Yankees were unstoppable.
Yes. And then, we go through like another drought where like all we're really known for is like we signed Alex Rodriguez to a ridiculous contract.
Yeah.
And then we traded him to the Yankees. But part of that trade we sent to the Yankees, we got some key pieces and we started building. And then 2008, 2009, like we had a really good baseball team and we had a really good window. And 2010, we make a run, we make it to the World Series, and we just ran into a juggernaut. That was the Giants. And
was that like Lincecum and all them?
Yep. And so it was just clear, like they won it in 5. We won 1 game, but you just kind of knew from game 1, like we had Cliff Lee, who was one of the best starting pitchers at the time, and he came out and they just shellacked him game 1. And you're like, okay, this is not going to go well.
Yeah.
And then next year we go again, kind of take a similar path to make it like beat the Rays in the DS, beat the Tigers in the CS, and then go to the World Series when we have the Cardinals. And then that was just, to the average observer, was a really good series. And it's a series now like I can appreciate more now that we've broken through.
Sure.
Like I think, last week I was just kind of like, let me just watch some of those game 6 highlights and just kind of see how it went down. And it was a fun game. And that was honestly the first time like I actually like look back at highlights from when that happened.
It doesn't hurt quite as bad anymore.
No, I actually realized like I kind of like misremembered, because like, we had our closer Neftali Feliz in, and I thought the ball that Freese hit, like I thought he tried to slide in a slider, because to get strike 2 he threw a fastball, and then Freese was nowhere near like looking like he was going to hit it. And so I thought like he slid in a slider, and that's the reason why he got around on it and got the bat on the ball. But when I looked back, it was like a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, but he just lifted up just a little bit and a little bit out. And that's all Freese needed to do that.
Was that his triple?
Yes.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how just a few inches can make such a huge difference.
Yeah. Because if it was like a half-inch lower, it's probably a ground out, we're world champions.
Mm-hmm.
An inch lower, it's a strikeout, we're world champions. But it's just
going to be one of those big what ifs in your franchise history.
Yeah, it's just not meant to be. But it's now that we've broken through in the World Series, like you can kind of like appreciate that team a whole lot more, because there's not that like cloud hanging over. Like you have a World Series now, and so it's kind of like, that was really a fun bunch.
Yeah.
Like, with Beltray, Andrews, like Michael Young, Ian Kinsler, the like 3 or 4 years where Hamilton was really good. Like Mike Knapp, like that was a really fun team to follow and watch. And now it's kind of like you can kind of like appreciate them more because like we have that World Series.
And again, it was just a step in the journey to this year. And
Yeah.
like you said, you can appreciate everything so much more now.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, very good. Just in general, because you have been watching baseball for so long, I did want to get your opinion on the new rules this year, mainly like the pitch clock and just things they did to, I guess, make it more enjoyable for the casual fan.
Yeah, I think they worked. I think even like some of the rules, like limiting like how much you can shift, is huge because like teams are hitting now, and so it's more about like really good like pitching hitting matchups, and we're not so much like bogged down in this like this batter is either going to walk, strike out, or hit a home run. Like there's teams getting on, like there's hitting, like the game's more exciting, like that game 5 where we clinched, like every time like Arizona got a base runner, they got him to second, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen? And then the pace of play just going so much faster, I think is good for the game. I think the biggest thing baseball needs to work on is like, I think they need to find ways to engage fans outside of TV. Because I saw where like this World Series was like the lowest rated World Series, and like it's kind of on a downward trend. And one of the things I've noticed too is like basketball is kind of similar. Like the ratings are on a downward trend, and I think just like when you talk about like a 7-game series, like that's a lot to invest in. When you're just like, I got to stay up to like 11, 12 o'clock, like potentially 7 of the next 10 nights. Like that's a lot of work.
It's a lot
of investment, and so. Like I think just something they can do is like, just kind of like trying to engage fans like outside the medium of TV. I think even like how successful the NFL has been, like they're doing things like that, like with like the Manning cast, like maybe just having like different like baseball like simulcast,
something different.
Yeah, and I think that would help, but also maybe play to. The superstitious baseball fans, where it's like, okay, if I watch them on this channel, like I watch this stream.
If you have more options to watch, then you won't end up on your phone.
And when it doesn't go bad, like when it goes bad, I can go here.
There you go.
I can go here. And like,
I like that.
When we're out in the field, I got to watch it on this, but when we're hitting, I got to watch it over here. But I think that's something baseball can do. I really do think the speed up rules have helped.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you might see baseball making an upturn.
I agree. Like, as someone who's a complete casual fan now and hardly watches any games besides the playoffs, I think my enjoyment went way up with the pitch clock, because so often it seemed like they would throw a pitch and then there'd be so much downtime in between, and you would just end up kind of like looking at your phone or even just seeing what else is on, because there's just nothing was happening. And during the playoffs this year, it was just nonstop. I loved it. So just from my point of view, I think it's working. And if they keep finding little things to do, then like you said, they'll kind of catch on with the younger audience, and hopefully it'll pick back up. But I think the lower ratings are just sports in general. Like you said, I don't think it had anything to do with it being the matchup that it was or anything like that, because it was a good matchup. But I think it's interesting. At least they're trying something. Yeah. For the most part, I think it's been positive, which I thought it, when I first heard about it, I thought it sounded desperate, because I like the tradition of baseball,
right? But
nothing was earth shattering. So if it makes it more fun to watch, then I'm all for it.
Yeah. And it just makes games go by quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe I have more appreciation of it, because if like you're starting a game at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh yeah.
There's no way I'm going to stay up for the whole game, but it's like, I can get 3 innings in and still get to bed at a decent time.
Exactly.
It's worth it.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, cool. Want to play some games?
Let's do it.
All right. So first one, pretty easy. Can't get it wrong because it is your opinion. I would like to hear your all-time Rangers lineup. Okay. And it doesn't have to be best player. Right. Like I'd almost be more interested in just hearing your favorite player at each position. And I'll let you have one starter, and if you want to do a reliever, you can.
Okay. All right. So I think pretty easy we can knock some of these out. You got to have Nolan Ryan as your starting pitcher.
Yep.
He's one of the best to ever do it. And then, same thing as catcher, you got to have Ivan Rodriguez. Like, if you are a default Hall of Famer, like, you deserve to be in that all-time lineup. So we got pitcher, catcher covered. I think first base, I think I would probably go with Will Clark.
Ooh, interesting.
Just because, when I was a kid playing baseball, like, even though I threw right-handed, I batted left-handed. I couldn't swing right-handed. I don't know why. It was just a quirk. But Will Clark was left-handed and had just like a sweet, smooth swing. I always tried to copy. And so
he was really good.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with Will Clark. Second base, probably I'm going to go, because I have to work him in somewhere, I'm going to go Michael Young.
There you
go. He
go.
played second, short, and third. But I got to get him in there somewhere. And I think, like, shortstop, I got to go Seager. And then third base, I'm going to have to go Beltre.
Oh, nice. He was good for so long.
Yeah, he really was. And it was a lot of fun. Like, the dynamic that Beltre and Andrews had, like, they were pretty fun to watch and just kind of like watch cut up. And if you ever get bored, just look up a YouTube video where, like, if there was like an easy pop fly, like, they would literally like mess with each other.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as they were trying to catch the pop fly.
What was the deal with people rubbing his head? Did he really not like it that much?
He did not like it. And it's just kind of like one of those things, I guess, like with you're with the boys and you make the mistake of like letting them know, like, I don't like this.
Yep. Then they're going to do it 10 times more.
Yeah. And so it was just like every time he hit a home run, it was his trip to the dugout was not enjoyable.
I always thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good infield. Who you got in the outfield?
So outfield, I think you got to go. We'll give him a pass for the steroids. We'll go Juan Gonzalez. I would put, because I feel like I want to put two hitters in there. I'm trying to decide, but I might need like a defensive center.
In this imaginary world, you need defense.
Yes. You know what? We're going to go with the bats. We're going to ride the bats. So we'll throw Garcia in center field, let him be a little bit of a duck out of the water just for like the run he had this season. And then we'll go Nelson Cruz right field.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I feel like he kind of catches a lot of grief because he was kind of awkwardly lunging at that ball, that freeze hit. But I've watched it a couple. He had no chance of getting that.
Yeah.
Ball. And it's the only thing he could have done is maybe set up to play the ball hitting off the wall and maybe trying to keep that run from first.
So just gotta take a different angle.
Yeah, but that is a big if because you don't know how it's going to careen off the wall. But we don't make it to the World Series both times without him. He absolutely dominated the Tigers in the ALCS. So yeah, there's my my 9. And maybe a reliever. I would probably go with Feliz because in his heyday he was really good.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, that's a pretty legit lineup. They would have easily beat those mid-90s Yankees for you.
Oh, 100%.
All right, next game is called Walker, Texas Ranger.
Okay.
Walker, Texas Ranger was a hit TV show starring Chuck Norris.
Right.
And never watched it myself, I don't think, but we're old enough that Chuck Norris jokes were popular for a while back then. So I'm going to read a Chuck Norris joke to you.
Okay.
And assign it kind of a key word and a question to go along with it. And you'll name a player from the Rangers that first one that comes to mind when you hear that word.
Okay.
So it's just a good excuse to get Chuck Norris jokes going
Let's
again.
do it.
So first one, the Swiss Army uses Chuck Norris knives. The word I think of here is utility. So name me your favorite non-star utility player.
Oh, non-star.
I would even let you say Michael Young because he
Yeah.
played so many positions. Like,
Well,
and he's your guy.
That's the first thought that came to mind. I mean, I don't know if he count. I mean, he made 1 or 2 World Series.
I say he was pretty good.
Yeah, he was good. He was a hit machine. But he came into the league playing second base, and then when we traded A-Rod to the Yankees, we got Soriano in return. So he moved shortstop. And then when Elvis Andrus was coming up, we moved him to third base, and it got a little contentious there.
I love hearing all these names I haven't heard in forever.
Where he wanted to be traded, and then kind of got smoothed over, and then was just kind of a utility guy, kind of a plug and play, until like once Beltray came over. So I think we could say Michael Young.
I like it. Yeah. For the younger listeners, you got to look up Michael Young. He was legit.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Chuck Norris can make sticks by rubbing 2 fires together. The word here is resourceful. Name a favorite reliever that could always get out of a jam.
As far as reliever goes, one of the things that bolstered our 2011 World Series run is we traded for a guy, Mike Adams, and he was just pretty much unstoppable.
Nice.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about him in, in so long. Very good.
So we'll go Mike Adams, or one guy that was huge for us this year, Dane Dunning, who was a former Florida Gator, but he actually would the plan was for him to be a long reliever this year, kind of an innings guy, and just kind of worked himself into that like number 4 starting role. Did really well.
That's cool. I didn't know he was a Gator.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, this one. Chuck Norris doesn't have a chin. Under his beard is another fist. So the word here is beard. Who had the best playoff beard this year?
I don't know if many of them had beards. I don't think they did that this year.
Ah, interesting.
That
had to have been like a group decision because it just seems like there's always the guys doing the playoff beards.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't really think of a guy that like was like a bearded guy.
Interesting. I just kind of assumed.
Any of the Rangers run.
See, I'm so focused on looking up Chuck Norris jokes. I didn't even see if they had beards. No worries. Last one. There are no streets named after Chuck Norris because no one would dare cross Chuck Norris. So the word is toughness. Who do you picture when you think of toughness for the Rangers?
I think Adrian Beltre.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever remember him being out of the lineup being hurt. Like he would play hurt, he'd get beat up, and he would just always produce. And like he was a Ranger for a short amount of time, but he was definitely like up there, like one of my favorites.
And you got to be tough to play as long as he did.
Yeah.
Like I just can't imagine the wear and tear that he put on his body, but he was just out there every day.
Oh yeah.
Yep. That's a good answer. All right. Very good. I would say you win that game.
Yeah.
And last game is called Lone Star Wars. So Texas is obviously the Lone Star State. And you and I, we used to talk about Star Wars a little bit when good old Mandalorian came out and all that good stuff. So as you can tell by the title, basically I'm going to mash up 2 names.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you clues for each name, and you have to give me the mashed up name.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So like Lone Star Wars.
All right.
All right.
Let's do it.
So the clues will get more and more helpful as we go. So if you get it after the first clue, we'll give you 3 imaginary points.
All right.
And if you get after the second clue, you get 2. If you need all 3 clues, you only get 1 point.
All right.
And if you don't get it after all the clues,
Just hang my head in
you can still be my friend.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So first one. This is a player and a director. So I just want to kind of get you in the right mind frame. So first clue. Threw 2 no-hitters for the Rangers. And then for the director, directed Last Jedi.
Okay.
So do you know who the player is off of that first clue?
It's Nolan Ryan, and I can't think what's his last name, director. I should be able to get this. Nolan Ryan.
Do you need a second clue?
No, I know who.
I know.
He directed Knives Out. It's Ryan. What is his last
You're
name?
so close.
I know. I feel like I should get credit because
You were very close. I'm going to give you the second clue. I don't think it's going to be very helpful because you already said it.
Yeah.
The second clue for the player is the most strikeouts ever.
Yeah.
And the second clue for the director is he directed Knives Out.
Because I think it's just one of those things like you cramp because it's like Ryan da-da-da's Knives Out.
I think you'll get it after the third clue.
What's the third clue?
So I was laughing earlier when you were telling the story because my third clue for this one is he beat up Robin Ventura.
Yep.
And the third clue for the director is his name sounds a lot like mine.
Oh, Rian John. There
Yep.
it is.
Yep. Very good. So Nolan Ryan Johnson is the first answer. Very good. You had that quick. Yeah. You just couldn't quite get his name. All right. Second one. This is a player and a Star Wars character.
Okay.
All right. So clue one for the player. He was the 8th overall pick in 2019 by the Rangers. And clue number one for the character is he trained Anakin Skywalker.
Okay. So 2000.
And I apologize in advance because this is kind of a stretch.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of 2019. My options would be what, like Josh Young, Evan Carter.
You want that 3 points?
I'm trying to. All right.
Second clue?
Well, I'm trying to think is there any way I can stretch Jonah Heim into.
Do you know the Star Wars character?
Well, I mean, if he trained Anakin, you're thinking Obi-Wan. So, but the Rangers player comes first, right?
In this one, yes.
So,
let me give you the second clue.
all right.
He hit a home run in his very first major league at bat. And the second clue for the character is old version was played by Alec Guinness.
Okay. So, as a part of the stretch, are we going like Ben Kenobi or is it Obi-Wan?
You are on the right track with Obi-Wan, but
Okay.
the reason it's a stretch is because I kind of threw in a little descriptive word to make this work. So the clue was old version played by Alec Guinness.
Let's go clue 3.
Clue 3, he was the starting third baseman for the AL All-Star team this year.
So it's Josh Young.
And then the character is played by Ewan McGregor.
So I'm just trying to figure out how we stretch Josh Young into Josh Young Obi-Wan Kenobi.
There you go.
There.
Josh Young, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that,
Okay.
like, Ewan McGregor played young
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi and Alec Guinness played old Obi-Wan. So
Got it.
I told you, I apologize. That was a stretch.
It's all right.
Not as much as this one. Ready?
All right.
All right. So this is a player and a character again.
Okay.
The player, clue number one, grew up in Alvin, Texas. And the character, orphaned as a child.
Okay.
Not much to go on there.
Yep.
Ready for clue two?
Yep.
Okay. Clue two, this was the first year for this pitcher with the Rangers.
Okay.
And clue two for the character is he has a little green friend.
Okay. So the Star Wars character, we going Luke Skywalker, and then trying to think through pitchers like this was Evaldi's first year pitching. This was DeGrom, and then maybe We got Montgomery, Jordan Montgomery, Scherzer. Let's go to clue 3.
Clue 3, this pitcher won 5 games this postseason.
Okay.
And clue 3 for the character, his nickname is Mando.
Ah, okay. So, Nathan Eovaldi Ginger.
Yeah, so you kind of really got to smash them together and say them fast. Nathan Eovaldi Dinjarin.
There we go.
Nice. You got that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you all the points for that. Very good. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you putting up with my silly little games, and I think the stories you told were great. This was great.
Yeah. Sometimes you can have an influence on the game and you don't even know.
I was going to say, I didn't realize that you actually won the World Series, not necessarily the Rangers.
Yeah.
So I like it. Well, cool. We'll have to have you back on to talk about the Gators sometime.
Yeah.
Maybe next year, when I'm assuming they're going to have an amazing recruiting class and the hype will be out of the world again.
Might need to hit on some players in the transfer portal.
Oh, there you
Maybe.
go. Well, cool, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.